Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry. You can find us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin and at Dynasty_Dale. Dale, we're back with another episode going through our full 2023 offseason recaps for all 32 teams. How we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's been a hot and humid day, and I'm just very excited to relax in the cool evening and talk about some West Coast teams for a little bit.
Yeah. I wonder what it's like over there. These two teams are probably pretty toasty too, I'm guessing. But well,
Well,
this team.
Rob, yeah,
Yeah, spoiler alert, we are recording another one after this one. But today we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Chargers. So if you haven't yet, go check out our other videos. They're all available on YouTube, Spotify, Google, Apple. If you want some video with it, you want to see our ugly mugs, you can go watch it on Spotify and YouTube. I've got the video versions up on both of those. If you just want to listen to our smooth, melodious tones, then you can check it out anywhere else. But yeah, we're going through the AFC West right now. We've done a couple other divisions, so those are all up there right now. By the time you're listening to this video, and if we haven't gotten to your NFC teams or the AFC South, those will be coming here in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you're tuning back in. We're putting one of these out every single day for the entire month of July. So we appreciate all the feedback that you guys can give us. Give us your thoughts and what you'd like to see changed or what could be improved going forward for next year, because I think this is going to be a yearly piece of content that we're going to try and do every single summer. I find it helpful personally going through all these teams. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this stuff too. So, going through all the offseason recap, it's helpful to remember some of the changes that we can expect going into this offseason, and that's going to have an impact on some of these players moving forward. So any last thoughts before we get into the Los Angeles Chargers here? All right. So if this is your first one, the order that we do everything. So we go through the coaching changes first, then we hit up the free agents, and then we go through the agents that they lost, the guys that they signed, the draft, and then we're going to give our thoughts on all these players and their fantasy relevance, dynasty relevance at the end of the podcast. So make sure you tune back in at the end, and we'll give you all of our thoughts there as well. So coaching staff. There was a few changes. Brandon Staley's been on the hot seat, according to a lot of people, for the last couple of years. They changed their offensive coordinator after the season. Joe Lombardi is no longer there, and they replaced him with Kellen Moore. I think this is a pretty good signing. Now, I'm on record of not loving Kellen Moore. I think that his passing offense can be a little stale. I talked about it a little bit, last time, but the thing with Kellen Moore is he's a little slow to make adjustments, and that's my only issue with Kellen Moore. I think he is very creative, but when his scheme gets figured out, it takes him like 3-4 weeks to kind of make any adjustment. So you have these kind of lulls in their dynasty production, right? Where you saw this all the time with the Dallas Cowboys, where 1 week they're putting up 45, then the next week it's like 10. You're like, what are we doing here? How is this happening? So I think Kellen Moore is a good up-and-coming offensive coordinator. I think he does need to take a little bit more of a step, but he gets a very loaded offense here. A couple other coaching changes that they made. They did replace their defensive coordinator. Ronaldo Hill was DC last year. They replaced him with Derek Ansley. He was the secondary coach on the team last year. They made a couple other minor coaching changes, linebackers coach, assistant secondary coach, some of those things, passing game coordinator. Those guys, they made some shifts over there. But for the most part, it's going to be Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley calling the offense and the defense here. So what are your thoughts on the coaching changes and Kellen Moore specifically?
Yeah, I thought Kellen Moore was a decent hire. I mean, anybody at this point has to be better than Joe Lombardi. He was not very good play calling for Herbert. It was a lot of dump offs. It just wasn't a very
It was
creative
vanilla.
offense.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah,
very
it
vanilla.
was not very creative, and I feel that Justin Herbert is past that point of a
Yeah.
vanilla offense, and
Yep.
it needs something a little bit more creative.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much more creative Kellen Moore is going to be, but I mean, I will say that he was a good coordinator in Dallas. I think Mike McCarthy really hampered some of his creativity in my opinion.
It's
Um,
possible. It's hard to
you
say
know,
exactly how
yeah,
the coaching breakdown, because you never even know what Jerry Jones could even have
is
his
saying
fingers on
yes,
over there too. So
absolutely,
we'll get into that a
absolutely.
little bit more when we get into the Cowboys. But no, it's a good sign, and if you're going to
It
replace
is,
Joe
it
Lombardi, I
is.
do think it is an upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, personally, I was shocked that Staley wasn't fired after the
Yeah,
playoff loss.
yeah,
Personally,
it was a bad
after
playoff loss,
it was a
but
bad playoff loss, but
I will say, here's the
still
thing.
they have faith in him.
Yeah, here's the thing. This is, and Staley's the perfect example of this, right? Where he's successful, he's been good, and he's kind of changing the philosophy of this team the last couple of years. He's a newer head coach. You got to give him a little bit of rope to kind of learn how to be a head coach. If we just go fire people when they're one game away from playoffs in his first year with a pretty solid roster, and then
Well,
in his
well,
second year he does make playoffs, it's like, what do you, here's the
I
thing, right?
understand
If you're
that.
gonna fire
I
him,
understand that. I understand that. But my only caveat is that he's really into the analytics side, and that's really bit him in the butt to get him in certain situations that have
sure,
led to these really bad losses, these really bad
that's fair.
looks.
That's fair.
Like yes, it's a coin flip on some of these, but the coin flip hasn't flipped on his
Right.
side. It seems like in a while.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's what. Here's
Yeah.
the thing, though. My only caveat: if you're going to replace a guy, you have to replace him with an upgrade, right? We think that Joe
Yes.
Lombardi
Yes.
being replaced by Kellen Moore is an upgrade. Who are you going to replace Brandon Staley with? That's really an upgrade, right? So
Right.
that's the only thing. Again, if he continues to get close and fails, well, then you can have that conversation. But as of right now, I think it's fine. Just letting him kind of learn his strengths and his weaknesses and things like that. So we'll see how they progress this year. Now we'll get into the free agents that they re-signed really quickly. So Cameron Dicker the kicker, they brought him back.
Yeah.
You always love that. Jalen Guyton, they actually restricted free agent signed him, so to another 1-year deal. Kevin Hall, cornerback. Donald Parham, they brought him back, which is a little interesting. He's kind of sneaky interesting. Tight end for the team. Offensive tackle, Foster Serrell. Quarterback, Easton Stick. Another offensive tackle, Trey Pipkins. Defensive end, Morgan Fox. And then center, Will Clapp. These are all guys that they re-signed. A couple guys. They had a pretty quiet free agency. They only
Yeah,
brought
they
in
did.
4 players. And one of them they've already cut. So, Eric Kendricks, linebacker from the Vikings, they brought him in. Defensive end Nick Williams, they brought him in. And then wide receiver Darius Shepard from the XFL, they've actually brought
My
him in
God.
the offseason. So, re-signing a few guys, but I think for the most part, they're just trying to save as much money as possible for the Justin Herbert massive extension that's going to be
Yeah.
coming. So, yeah, it's not too much from the free agent side. Any thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, not really. I mean, those are pretty quiet signings, just kind of keeping the team together and trying to make another run.
Right. A couple guys that they did lose in free agency: offensive tackle Storm Norton. Rip. He finally is gone. He's probably one of the worst starting right tackles. Like, he's a
Yeah.
solid depth guy, but that guy was just getting destroyed every single week for the team. Troy Reeder, interior linebacker Drew Tranquil. Kyle Van Noy, another linebacker. Their defense took a pretty big hit, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Nose tackle Taylor Davis. Christian Covington, defensive end. Safety Nasir Adderley, he retired this year.
Yep.
Defensive end Joe Gaziano. Brandon Fajeco, another defensive end that has left this team. Forrest Merrill, another DE that left. So a lot of their defensive line and interior, their front 7, took a massive hit. They had pretty good depth, but you don't love to see that. So other than that, not many other positions got hit very hard. Again, the offense losing Storm Norton might not be necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, it's just.
And then they did lose Chase Daniel, which is a fantastic backup quarterback.
Oh yeah, yes, yep, Chase Daniel, the classic. So yeah, for the most part, this team, it's just they really try to build through the draft. They try to, for whatever reason, LA. I've never understood this. The Chargers have like the smallest fan base in the NFL, and maybe it's because they've gone from St. Louis to. Well, they weren't with St. Louis. That was the Rams, right? So it was San Diego, and then they've just moved all over the place, right? So maybe they've never.
Well,
been
they've
able
only
to
been
establish.
in they were in San Diego for 50 plus years, and
Right. Yeah, I was thinking of I got the other LA team,
Rams.
the Rams. But yeah, I just never understood it, man. Like, it's a good they're a fun team. They have some of the best jerseys in the NFL.
Like, I love those powder blues.
I don't know. I think Justin Herbert's helping this team to people like this team a little bit more now, but it's just crazy that people don't want to come sign with this team. And I think Justin Herbert has the potential to be, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, not just fantasy football or anything, like legitimately just one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this year. And nobody wants to come play with him. Like, the free agents, you got 3 guys. Like, what's going on here? It just seems crazy to me, but so anyway, they like to build through the draft. So their first round pick was Quentin Johnston. I low-key loved this pick. I really did. I was hoping that they would take someone like Michael Mayer over a wide receiver, but oh man, I love Quentin Johnston on this team so much. In round 2, they took Tuli Tuipulotu, outside linebacker, not offensive linebacker. Is getting in my brain. Out of USC here. Dayan Henley, interior linebacker out of Washington State. So they're really trying to rebuild those defensive players that they lost in the draft here. Darius Davis, wide receiver out of TCU. 2 wide receivers from TCU in the first 4 rounds here. John McFadden, tackle out of Clemson. Scott Matlock, defensive tackle out of Boise State in round 6, and then Max Dugan, quarterback out of TCU in round 7. So really spent a lot of time at TCU this year scouting these players. But any major names or any comments on the draft here?
Well, with Quentin Johnston, I think he's going to. I think they're hoping he's going to be the Keenan Allen replacement.
Not Mike Williams.
Well, I think he's kind of a mixture of both.
I agree with that, actually.
Or could be a mixture of both. I would say could be, because we haven't seen him have a snap. So,
sure.
I think he's going to be the next. He's projected to be the next great Charger wide receiver. So, I think he's interesting. I mean, I've kind of faded on him. Like, I like other rookies a little bit more. Personally, but I mean, I do like QJ. I think he's great. And other than that, I think the Max Dugan pick is interesting. I mean, I think he does. I think he's a worse Justin Herbert. I guess if you
so backup, he's the
for the
backup
with
Easton.
I mean, like him and Easton Stick do a lot of the same thing. Like they can get out of the pocket. Like they can do those things that help their team.
Yeah, nobody likes talking about backup quarterbacks until your main guy gets hurt, right? And that's what you need, a good guy. So no, I do like that that signing in round 7. So it's cheap, right? You can't complain about that. So going into the actual team now. So offensive line, they did lose Storm Norton, but they still have a pretty solid group of linemen. Their center are pretty deep. Corey Linsley is their starter there. Jordan McFadden, Zion Johnson, who they drafted last year, I believe. Brendan James. Lots of guys here in the interior. Rashawn Slater, the premier left tackle that they took a couple years ago. He's finally starting to step up into that role. Trey Pipkins, I think, is their right tackle, if I remember right. Couple other guys. I wouldn't be surprised to see them add a couple of depth pieces as well at that position. But yeah, I think that this offensive line, it's not going to be top 5, but I think it's top half, and I think that's good enough.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it's a big thing with any offensive line is for them to stay healthy.
Right.
Um,
That's what
I
Chargers
think
have struggled with a lot.
they've struggled with that mightily, and that's what happened with Slater last year. Is he ruptured his biceps tendon, which that ended his whole
Yeah.
season
Yep.
in week 3.
Yep.
So that really derailed them quite a bit.
There must be something with the Chargers that they are just cursed with injuries. It is crazy the amount of
I
injuries that
think
they.
I also think some staffs don't have as good of a training staff
Yeah, they
as
did.
others. You know,
One small note on that specifically, they did fire their head athletic trainer, so maybe they'll
good.
replace him with
That
somebody.
that was
Um,
probably much needed,
that's like
honestly.
Washington had the same problem for a long time, right? And then they finally replaced
It was
their
horrific.
their strength and conditioning guy, and it's like all of a sudden they don't have nearly as many
Mhm.
injuries. It's crazy. I don't
And
know.
that's the same
So
with like the 49ers are always plagued with,
right, right.
thousands of injuries. It's crazy.
Yeah, so something with these, that's like if I was a GM, that'd be the number one thing I'd be looking into. Like, how are
100%.
you messing this up compared to everybody else? Are we just that unlucky for 10 straight years? I would have to disagree with that. So, all right. So, offensive line should be good as long as they're healthy, good enough anyway. Quarterback, again, we talked about him. I like Justin Herbert a lot. There's not a
I
lot
do
to talk
too.
about there, as long as he's healthy. And I mean, it's crazy to me. I just did a mock draft just last week for just with some other guys in the industry and everything. And this was a dynasty startup, and I got Justin Herbert as the 8th quarterback at pick number
Whew.
8. It was crazy.
That's
I'm like,
beautiful. That's
in a
beautiful.
super flex,
That's
man. I was
beautiful.
like,
That's beautiful. Yes. Love
he's
it. Love it.
he's my quarterback number 4 right now in
Right.
in dynasty, and I think that he has the potential to jump up to top 3, right? And it's just Justin Herbert, the slander on him is going crazy. I think he's so elite, and everyone looks at last year and say, oh well, he didn't have as good of a year, but he had broken ribs for 8 weeks. Like, he broke them in week
Yeah.
1. It was crazy. So, yeah, I think Justin Herbert's going to be elite. Yeah, I do think Easton Stick will probably be the backup for a while. Maybe Max Dugan
Yeah.
can compete with him, but I think they'll probably run 3 of these guys, in my opinion. All right, running back wise, Austin Ekeler, obviously the number 1 guy here. Now the question is, who is the number 2? Austin
Yeah. That's
Ekeler, he's going into the final year of his contract. They could always franchise tag him next year. I don't think they'll do that. It's kind of a slap in the face to Austin Ekeler at that point.
it
If
is.
they,
Yeah.
with how the relationship has kind of gone this offseason, I don't think that they're the type to be vindictive like that as well. So I do think that they're going to let Austin Ekeler walk after this season. Maybe they're the team that's going to pay him a ton of money to stay with the team. If he has another 20 touchdowns this year, maybe they'll
I
do
just
it.
think it would be silly to pay him that much.
I
Like it's
agree.
pay it would be paying him for what he did. He's
Yeah,
20. He's
I
28
think they
years
should
old.
reward him a little bit. He scored 40 touchdowns in 2
I
years for
don't
them.
I don't disagree with that, but that's not how
Sure.
the world works.
I know. It's unfortunate for these running backs. These guys are getting
It
screwed,
is
dude.
very unfortunate for it's for Eckler especially.
Yeah.
It's for being undrafted. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
have any of that pedigree.
He signed
He comes on.
he signed a 4-year, $24 million contract 3 years ago. This is year 4 of it, right? So, I mean, he's making $6 million and he scored that many touchdowns. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. All right, so the number 2 options, you got Larry Roundtree, Joshua Kelly, or Isaiah Spiller. Now, I personally think that Isaiah Spiller still has the potential. Everyone's going to look at him and say, well, he did nothing last year as a rookie, but he was injured to start the
He
season.
was
Shocker,
yeah.
another injury for the Chargers. But Isaiah Spiller didn't even see the field. He didn't even start to practice with the team until I think around week 9, if I remember right. And he was, he was getting blown up on pass protection and typical rookie stuff. So they really didn't utilize him much. He didn't get a lot of play time. He started to get a little bit more as the season went on, but we've just seen enough from Joshua Kelly and Larry Roundtree that we know that they're not the backup. Isaiah Spiller is the only one that I think could be the guy. You share that thought?
I want it to be Isaiah Spiller, but
Sure.
I mean again, like we have to see it. And Joshua Kelly's not horrible. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's okay.
Right.
I mean, I think Austin Eckler is going to be on the field 90% of the time, and he's going to work his ass off, and he's going to do great. He's going to score all the fantasy points that we can ever imagine. Um, and I hope Spiller is the guy that's going to back him up. But it's still a little murky and weird, and really we're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be wait and see.
Right.
Um, but if I were to stash a guy, it would be.
All right. I bet you could probably get him for a 3rd round pick right now.
Oh, easily. Yes,
So,
yes.
he's pretty cheap right now. Now,
Very cheap.
pass catchers for the team, we're going to lump all these guys together. They don't really have a guy at tight end that you're that thrilled with. Gerald Everett was okay last year, but he was not anything special. That's kind of the problem. They don't really utilize the tight end very much. I don't think Kellen Moore is going to really do a ton. Now, Gerald Everett did finish as the tight end number 13 last year, so he was almost top 12. But, I mean, it was 58 catches for 550 yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't really see much more of a ceiling available for him than that.
Right.
So, personally, I'm not that interested in him. If I'm going for playmakers on this team, I'm going for Quentin Johnston. This is how I rank them personally. Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Gerald Everett.
That's fair. Yeah. Why don't you like Mike Williams?
Mostly because he's very streaky. And
Yeah.
I do think that Keenan Allen, and now this is coming from a full point PPR perspective, right? Keenan Allen, after he came back last year, I know he missed a ton of time with the hamstring injury. He didn't come and play really until week number 11. But this is his scores for the rest of the season. Starting in week 11, his first game back, 12, 16, 21, 21, 17, 22, 12, 31. Like, he was just on a tear to end last year. And Mike Williams, he misses time. He's banged up all the time. He's so good when he's healthy, but he's more of a best ball type of guy to me, just because you don't know when he's going to be there. And, the one thing I was looking into him a little bit before we started recording. He had the back injury, this last offseason. Now, going into OTAs, he said he was cleared. The team did not say he was cleared. So, it's always a take it with a grain of salt, like J.K. Dobbins. Oh, I'm going to be out there week 1.
Right.
Hint, he wasn't out there week 1, right? So, Mike Williams, it just scares me that we haven't heard anything more about this back injury. They don't have to report it anytime soon. And he's just a guy that I think that Quentin Johnston is more of a replacement for him long term than for Keenan. I don't think you're going to be able to. I think they'll try and get a more specialized route runner if they want to replace Keenan. Quentin Johnston's that big body outside target that they can get down the field with the speed, right? That's Mike Williams' MO. He makes amazing catches, but he falls so hard, man. And
So hard.
Yeah,
Agreed.
so if I'm investing in this team, 1st round pick, Quentin Johnston, he was the number 2 wide receiver taken. They could have taken Jordan Addison, but they took Quentin Johnston over him. So that means that they believe in the talent. And he's a big guy, and he's paired with who I arguably think is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So for me, it makes the most sense. You get the long-term value. Mike Williams can't really stay healthy, so there's going to be playtime opportunity in year 1 for him. And yeah, I think that he's going to make a surprising splash in year 1. Keenan Allen, he's the guy that I want if I'm trying to compete this year. Again, I just read you his scores. The dude was on a tear, and then you throw that into a Kellen Moore offense, and I wouldn't be shocked if Keenan Allen has like 150 targets this year, just because they're going to dump it off to him as much as possible. So he'll probably have like 150 targets, maybe 125, 130 catches for probably like 1,400 yards. That's my guess on Keenan Allen. And that's not to say that Mike Williams, when he's healthy, can't have 1,200 yards, because he's just, this offense is going to be throwing the ball. Yeah, exactly. They're going to be Justin Herbert might legitimately have 5,000 yards this year. So, I like all these guys, but if I have to rank them, that's how I'm doing it. What are your thoughts on the
Yeah,
receivers?
I would agree with that. I mean, I really agree with your point in Mike Williams that like he's great for best ball, but like if you're playing like regular dynasty settings, like he's not someone you can rely on.
Right.
He's never been that guy. I love Keenan Allen, but like it seems like recently that both of those guys can't stay healthy,
Right.
and that's because they're just getting older, and unfortunately, Mike Williams has been plagued with injury.
Right. I mean,
And then with
yeah.
Quentin,
Oh,
yeah, and then with Johnston, I think he's gonna be best served in. I think he has Mike Williams' size in a
mhm.
Keenan Allen role.
He has Keenan Allen speed, that's for sure.
Yeah, 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 and like I think he's gonna be more of like the dink and dunk. I'm gonna take a slant,
Yeah.
70 yards to the house, kind of ordeal,
Right.
and that's what he's going to do. And I'm really excited for him. I think he's going to get off to I feel most rookies get off to a slow start, so don't really be concerned with that.
Right.
I wouldn't start him, the first half of the year, but like towards the back half, like once he starts getting a game or two in where he's
Mhm.
being more targeted,
Or there's an
I
injury, right? Yeah, if
yeah,
there's a single
or there's an
injury.
injury.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So, all right. Any last thoughts on the Chargers before we wrap this up?
I am actually really excited about Gerald Everett. I think he is a sleeper candidate to be probably like tight end maybe like 9-10 this year. I don't think he's
Sure.
going to do anything crazy, but I can see him having like a Dalton Schultz like year a couple years ago. Scoring
Sure.
almost double digit touchdowns, and I think he's going to be really good. So,
Yeah.
if you're doing startups, like I think he's someone that you can take in the much later rounds and be halfway content with starting
Mhm.
every now and again.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
all
He
honesty.
finished his 13 last year. Again, I read his
Yeah.
stats off earlier. It wasn't the best stats, but I mean,
No, no.
for
I
in a startup, you're getting him rounds 23,
Oh,
24.
gee,
I
yeah.
mean, it's so late.
Yes.
So, no,
Yes.
that's a decent stab right there. The only thing I will say, the only way that happens that he has a Dalton Schultz type season means that Austin Eckler's probably not getting 20 touchdowns. So,
That's
wh-
true.
on, which
That's
which
true.
one is more likely? That's the only scary part, right? But
I would say Austin Ekeler. But
right, right. So, no, Chargers, very, very good team. These are kind of like my low key. I love to root for this team. They're just the underdogs that you're always
oh,
hoping that they
always.
finally put it together, and they just can't. Every year, it's just like a curse, just gets them every
Yep.
single time. But no, a lot of good players here, and yeah, that's our thoughts here on the Chargers. So, like I said earlier at the start of the video, the podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, Google. While you're over there, if you can, just subscribe to the video, leave a comment, like the video. It takes you 10 seconds to click those buttons. Even just say hi in the comments down below. I don't care. It can be a question, it can be a hello, anything. Just helps us out with the algorithm, gets it out there to more people. We're just trying to get these videos seen by as many people as possible. If you can, just tell the podcast to one of your friends and yeah, just get it out there. We're just trying to put this out to as many people as possible. We like doing this content. Hopefully you guys like it as too. Like I said, leave us some thoughts as well. If there's anything you'd like us to change going forward, we're going to do this every single offseason. So yeah, any feedback you guys have, we appreciate it. Dale, any last thoughts here? All right. Until next time, thank you guys so much for joining us and have a good night.
You know that Austin Eckler has never had a